Bug Racing back again with another That Time When, and we are looking at That Time When 2020. COVID took over Formula One. So let's take a look into the past here with the coronavirus outbreak, because the Australian Grand Prix got called off. 13th of March 2020, BBC Sport. I remember this like it was yesterday. Not quite 5 years ago. We are a month off of March. I mean, it is a few weeks away from being 5 years ago, but you know what? This is going to be a time that's going to be looked back in decades, or maybe 100 years from now. You know, proper like technology at play. This shut down the world. Now we can all be skeptical and be like, oh, you know, it should never have shut down the world. Which here, that is my opinion. It's an absolute joke. You can push agendas and things like that, but still a crazy time. You know, football getting called off left, right, and centre. It was so weird, and it feels so surreal. Like, we're not talking about one-off events being called off. Like, the Australian Grand Prix got called off, and then every race got called off. And then for like 3 to 4 months, we had nothing, folks. We had no football, no sports. It was absolutely brutal. You couldn't leave the house unless you were working, obviously. But then some people had stay-at-home jobs, so crazy. Now, Andrew Benson. Now, this is from the exact time of it here. So, the Australian Grand Prix has been called off after teams and drivers forced the hand of Formula One bosses. A decision to cancel the race was made in the early hours of Friday morning after a McLaren team member tested positive for the coronavirus in Melbourne. The race abandonment was not made official for another 8 hours. By that time, Ferrari's Vettel and Kimi Raikkonen had flown home. McLaren later said on Friday that 14 former members had been placed in quarantine in their hotel. Ferrari said that they were the first team not to race in Melbourne due to the circumstances. So it just shows you, like, it's such a surreal time. And obviously the fans were very pissed off, and rightfully so, because you'd paid a lot of money. I don't even know how like refunds worked or whatever. You know, and a lot of drivers stayed in Melbourne. It's raised a huge question of the sport this year. But what you've got to bear in mind, see around this time, man, everything was getting cancelled. And as we head over to the Formula One website, this was back on the same date. The 2020 season now expected to start at the end of May. So, like, how crazy was that? Now, we were, as I said earlier, like, races in China, Bahrain, and Vietnam got cancelled after Australia. And at this point, they were like, right, well, what are we doing here? And obviously, China was the epicenter of where it all began. And yeah, you're probably thinking the Vietnam Grand Prix. If you're new to F1, you might not even know about the Vietnam Grand Prix, but yeah, it's supposed to take place in 2020. Never did. It was in the game, but that was about it. And so it's just a bit crazy. Just a bit crazy. And obviously back in this time, I mean, Max Verstappen had never won a world championship back at this time. Absolutely crazy, folks. Absolutely freaking mental. Yeah, folks, so it was just a crazy time. Obviously, it was sad because F1, I'm pretty sure it got delayed to the start of July, where we were just having like triple header after triple header after triple header. So it was kind of cool, but at the same time, it did suck because you were getting multiple Grand Prix, like twice at the same circuit: Silverstone, Austria, Bahrain. Now, they did use different, sometimes layouts, different rules, different tyre formats, but it didn't exactly, you know, it wasn't exactly great, but the fact we got like the return of the Nürburgring, Mugello, and things like, you know, the debut of Mugello, and seeing like retro tracks return was great. You know, can't dispute that. I believe Imola as well. So yeah, that was fantastic. But we also missed out on a full season. But at the same time, Mercedes dominated, so can't complain too much about a festive